Greetings all, welcome to Everything Borrowed, where we sit down to share stories and have conversations with entrepreneurs to artists and everyone in between. Today's episode is powered by Blake's Hard Cider, 100% fresh pressed, all natural and gluten-free, straight from our family's 75-year-old farm in Southeast Michigan. Find us in your local grocer or have Blake's direct ship to your home by visiting blakestore.com. Use promo code EverythingBorrowed to receive 10% off your first order. Must be 21 years of age. Please enjoy mindfully. Teresa Goines is the founder and CEO of Old Skool Cafe, a supper club run by at-risk youth in San Francisco, which provides training, jobs, and a second chance at life for youth coming out of incarceration and foster care. Teresa's experience working with gang-affiliated youth as a juvenile correction officer impacted her life in a way that changed her forever. Their stories gave her an in-depth understanding of how many young people end up in such a destructive path and compelled her to find a solution to the hopelessness she saw. Teresa's mission is to permanently break the cycle of incarceration by giving young people hope, economic opportunities, training, and a supportive environment where they can grow emotionally, physically, and spiritually. She's truly an incredible woman. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Watching the quick little documentary that you have, I mean, it touches you and it makes you feel a lot of emotions that I was blown away. So I'm super excited to hear, your origin story and how it all began. You obviously were a police officer in the police force before your current life. So, and I've never heard of a youth-run supper club, but I absolutely love the idea. And I'm on the school board in my local community, and one of the things I've been trying to put together is a cafe that allows all the students to, learn entrepreneurship, learn kind of the work, and we're working with our school to kind of pilot a program. So when I saw this, I was like, I need to learn exactly, where this came from, how she did it, and just been blown away as I got to learn more and more about the story. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I thank you. I always love to hear other people across the nation that are investing in young people.
Exactly. And I always said we're all like already flawed. I'm 31. I already have all my habits and all my bad habits, and the youth is where it's at. We're already kind of a little messed up and screwed up as adults, and investing in the youth is I think our best time spent. So talk to us a little bit about how it all started.
Yeah, sure. So, as you kind of referenced, I was an officer through the probation department working with young people that were incarcerated, mostly due to gang involvement. So that's going to be violence, drug, selling drugs, robbing people, that kind of thing. And just as I got to, the more that I worked with them and I heard their stories and where they were coming from, and these are, young, we're talking 18 and under down to 14 years old. And as I started to hear their stories over and over about how they got there, right? Because I always say no kid, in your 3 or 4 is like, I want to grow up to be locked up in a, 8x8 cell. Right,
right.
And grow up behind bars, right? I mean, there's never, or I want to grow up and be, robbing people or, so somewhere along the way, something happens, and it's usually there's trauma, there's all kinds of factors that end a young person in that situation. And so really it was a journey of learning kind of how they got there, and then once I realized these are kids that really never got a chance to have a childhood and be a kid, then it became like that heart cry of how do we find a better solution than just building more prisons for our kids to just punish, versus say, hey, there's such an opportunity for them to turn their life around, but we have to actually give them that real option. And that's sort of where the kind of bubbling in my soul started to create this. Yeah,
well, I think it's so beautiful. And one of the things I've always said is, I think environment, creates so much of all of our habits, how we grow up, the people we're around, the people, what we're born into, where we're born into. And, I think people are inherently people, and the situations we put them in kind of, drive them to certain behaviors and habits. And, one of the best ways I can figure to, help course correct, situations that are detrimental or harmful to kids is to create new environments. And that seems like what you've done at Old Skool Cafe. So going from, the probation world and kind of, understanding this calling and seeing this problem. And I agree with you, punishment, it's usually like the carrot or the stick model. Are you, what is the thing that is, incentivizing people to change behaviors and habits and work to getting out of it? And you've obviously come up with a great way to, create a new environment for at-risk youth. But being a probation officer, how'd you figure out how to, open up a restaurant and bring in kids? How did that journey? Because that's a little bit of a jump. I currently run a couple restaurants in our organization. We have a few, and they're tough to run as is. And I imagine that, having no experience in it, that was a journey in and of itself too.
Yes, exactly. So because you've done it, right, and you know how incredibly hard it is, I think that's why I was able to do it, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I didn't know how impossible it would be, because I think had I come from that industry, I would have been like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, right.
But because I didn't know how hard it would be, I was naive enough to believe that this could work. And so, I just really, I felt like the restaurant industry is, there's so much that's so good about what we learn in it, right? You learn how to work with people, you learn how to work under pressure, with a lot of different, you got hangry people that, you mess up the order and they're really hungry, and right. So you're learning conflict resolution, you're learning hospitality, how to, there's just so much that goes into that. And because we have a lot of the young people I worked with that were incarcerated were so naturally good with people, right? They were good entrepreneurs. It was just,
right.
It was focused in a negative direction that was going to land them, either in jail or dead. So I'm like, well, if they're natural entrepreneurs, they're naturally like savvy with people and gregarious, like, why don't we give them an opportunity to use those gifts, So I was thinking, okay, restaurant industry, it's one of the jobs that you can go anywhere in the world, and even a tiny little town is going to have a cafe,
right?
Even if it's one cafe, right? To the big cities, from hotels to restaurants to cafes. If you have that experience, you kind of can go anywhere in the world and get a job. So I wanted something that was like, let's get this on their resume where they can go anywhere. And then in the restaurant industry, as there's dishwashing, there's cooking, there's hosting, serving. We also teach marketing, fundraising, business management, right? So there's so many different,
it's the whole hospitality idea, and you can take and apply those skills. And I've always said, the work you learn being so hands-on in a restaurant is very applicable, because you can take that mentality and that skill set anywhere. And it doesn't get, if you can master a restaurant and you can create the patience to do that and work within that, it's kind of a high stress environment. And anything else after that will be a cakewalk,
Right? That's kind of what it's like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Because so we do life skills, and we do job training and all those things in a classroom. That's part of our program. But for me, it's got to be hands-on, because it's one thing to say, hey, so when somebody, across all industries, how to do conflict resolution. How do you, if you're calling people on the phone and they hang up on you or whatever, like, how do you do this, right? It's one thing in a classroom, but then to actually be with live people and real time in a pressure cooker, learn how to put those things into play with a mentor right beside you. That's where, to me, where real learning comes to play, because in a book is great, in a classroom is great, but if you don't have the ability, the opportunity, and the mentorship to put it into place and fail, and have somebody there to walk you through how to get back up and try again.
Right. So what year did Old Skool Cafe get up and running? How long have you been at this?
So it depends on what you mean by up and running. The vision I started working on it in 2004. We incorporated in 2005. And then I did, of course, people are like, wait, so let me get this right. You want to run a restaurant when 9 out of 10 restaurants fail, with young people coming out of jail, foster care, challenging circumstances, who have never worked before, might have some anger issues, and you have no restaurant business experience. You have no celebrity chef, no financial backers, right?
Yeah.
So let's just 2005 when I incorporated until we actually got a building in 2011 and opened to the public in 2012 as a full restaurant. I did pop-ups. I did it out of my house. I did all the training here.
Wow, that's great.
Here we did pop-up events here. We did pop-up events in nightclubs and restaurants on days when they were closed. So from 2005 to basically 2012, we were operating, but in a pop-up model, and then a full restaurant since 2012.
And what has been, your experience for, on the business side? I mean, after looking, knowing that you were coming on, doing a lot of research, I mean, you were CNN hero, a CNN hero, which is huge. I mean, you have gotten notoriety across the country. I have to imagine that only helps, bring, more attraction to the idea and the concept. But what has it been like? Because restaurants are tough, and, have you been able to, find a way to make it, it seems like it, you make it profitable? And do you see this idea being a scalable model or an opportunity to take this concept and apply it in different cities? I mean, I know you're in San Francisco, but I would love to see this concept rolled out, across the country, because I just believe it to be so healthy. And I'm just curious how you've navigated the, kind of the business side of it, because I know that that's challenging, and especially, during this COVID, this last year we've had, it's been especially rough on restaurants. And, I read something that you've committed to, kind of keeping kids employed as much as possible. And thank you for that. That's a huge deal. But talk to us a little bit about the business side of the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the fun part.
Yeah, right.
So we're a social enterprise. So we're actually, so some social enterprises have a nonprofit arm and a for-profit arm.
Yep.
Or you could be like us and we're a full nonprofit.
Okay.
And so that has been, so basically every dollar you spend in the restaurant or our catering or pickup goes right back into the restaurant, right? So there's no owners,
shareholders that are
getting it's all goes into making sure we can, pay our staff, make sure the kids have, more hours, great training, all the pieces we do. So, so we make some of our revenue from the restaurant. Obviously this last year, it's been, pennies.
Mm-hmm.
So had we not been a nonprofit, so really it's been our donors, some grants, the PPP loan, we would be closed if it wasn't for the generous people that really believe in our program and our kids to help us make it through this season that we've lost all of our earned revenue. So what's great about, social enterprises is you've got both arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're doing as a program kind of works against the business model, right? So a business model is keep it lean, right? You want to have, people that can, like a server that can, upsell and, take care of multiple tables, be quick, that kind of thing. Well, we're taking, youth that have never worked before that are totally intimidated to come talk to you at your table.
Yeah, right.
So upselling isn't going to happen probably for at least a year, right? When they're comfortable, even so ask you, would you like another, cup of coffee or drink or dessert? So it actually, so you have to have this, this philanthropy arm to cover.
And it's a process, I'm sure, in the training. How many kids have you employed over, since you got stood up in 2011, 2012? And how long do you see, kids in the program? I mean, is there a process where they cycle in and cycle out, or is it kind of stay as long as you like?
Yeah. Well, it's been a little different over the years, but
right.
So 2 years is kind of our sweet spot, and we serve, on a normal year that's not COVID, we're going to serve around 40 youth in the heart of the program. Now we have other pieces of the program, but in the intensive, restaurant life skills coaching training, about 40 a year, and then they can stay up to 2 years. Now we have made exceptions. Some youth need longer because maybe this is the first time they've felt stability in their life, first time they've felt a sense of home and support. And so we're not going to kick them out at 2 years if they're really starting to fly and they need a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have youth that are ready to move on sooner than that. So we hold it loosely, but 2 years seems to be the sweet spot of them being able to really gain lots of skills, a resume, work on a lot of the internal stuff that needs to be healed. So yeah, that's basically, and we have cycles that we have levels that they can move up in leadership. They become the trainers for the new youth coming in. So we do 3 cohorts a year. So we have a group of 10 coming in each new cohort, and the older youth will train and mentor the new ones coming in.
That's great. That's amazing. When you think about this concept and, as being kind of a social enterprise that adds real value to the community, is this something that kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, and you're obviously a pioneer in this kind of idea, but it seems like, the right thing to be doing with instead of, putting our kids and our youth in jail and, giving them rap sheets, that, putting them in productive training, opportunities to learn life skills and to learn, right habits and right environments that can, foster the right type of people that we need in society. Do you think that this concept is multipliable across the country? And, what's your vision for this idea beyond maybe just San Francisco? Is it doable?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you ready to partner in your city?
I'm getting kind of excited. That's why I'm hoping I can find out. I mean, you seem like a pretty damn special person. So I'm wondering if this is something that is, applicable or, applicable, everywhere without a Teresa Goines, leading in it.
Yeah, no, great question. I appreciate that. So yes, the vision from the beginning was always, my heart was, I want to revolutionize the way we treat young people in our country, right? Mm-hmm. Especially young people that have had a lot of trauma. And my goal is to see a lot more of our jails and prisons for kids close, and instead building and investing money into old schools or things like Old Skool. They're going to invest in their healing body, mind, soul, and spirit, right? The whole piece, mm-hmm. right? So we've been working for the last several years on what I call Old Skool in a Box, to make it easy to kind of open in the training. So we've been working on the training videos, the manual, our intranet, the how to, even the mentorship of the leadership of the youth, how to train the trainer. So yeah, we're super excited, and I'm going to be going on sabbatical in a little bit for a few months, but that's really my goal when I come back from sabbatical, is to start talking with some of the cities and places that have been really interested in opening this in their city, and looking, how do we start to really multiply this in other areas, because we've proven it works, right? Mm-hmm. And so why the ROI on locking kids up is horrible, right? Like, 70% once they're incarcerated are going to continue to go back. So mm-hmm. we're investing all this money into, locking them up and probation and all this stuff, knowing that 70% are just going to keep coming back and keep coming back. So why not move that money into, programs where they can actually break that cycle for good? It's we're the 10th of the cost it takes to incarcerate. So it's a huge savings, actually.
And I wanted to ask you that, because is the cycle broken though? I mean, I hate to frame it this way, but it has that part of, call it the incarceration or the jailing of kids, has it become a profitable model? And is that the reason why that people besides yourselves and our institutions, are not looking to change some of these things? Because it seems like this is kind of a no-brainer to me.
Right?
Yeah, it just seems crazy that this isn't something that we're not looking at more holistically and looking at the data, looking at the numbers, and saying it's just wrong and it's costly. And and I don't know. I hate to be conspiratorial, but I'm just curious why this isn't more common sense, because it just seems right.
Yeah, well, I think institutional change is like moving the Titanic.
Very slow, right?
Yeah, and I remember as a young officer, and when I, started to have this vision, and I would talk about it with people, they're like, yeah, okay. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to show them. I'm going to have to prove that a different way works, because you kind of don't have a seat at the table when it's this idea.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, then I'm going to prove to you that this works, which our recidivism rate of youth going back into the system is 12% compared to 70, right?
So if they go through your program, there's only a 12% chance that they find themselves back in. That's amazing.
Right. So now we've proven it, but that takes time, right? It's like you have to prove a better way. And then you have to also work with society that maybe have fear of, well, what's going to happen, right? But because we've seen young people that have been in gangs, that have been doing violence, that have been like caught in that whole cycle and addicted, that are totally out of that have graduated college, that are, now becoming productive members of society, paying taxes, mentoring the youth coming after. Like, now we have years of stories and data to show, okay, this does work. So that is my hope, that this is a season that we get that seat at the table with my youth to say, hey, we've proven a better way. So now let's start changing the dialogue, and let's start investing differently in our young people.
Yeah. And so when you look at, these popping up, and you talked about other cities and other municipalities, other states that are interested in this concept, is that impetus coming from, public or private, interest? I mean, is it public, programs that are looking to invest in this type of thing, or is it, inspired entrepreneurs and inspired individuals who want to make a difference, or is it a little bit of both? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, it's actually it's both. And what's really inspiring and encouraging to me is, so like you mentioned the CNN hero piece. So this is the power of media, right? So I'll never forget when I got a note that said the mayor of Ocala, Florida wants to talk to you about having an Old Skool in Ocala. Well, I have never even heard of Ocala. I was like, where's Ocala?
Right.
Right. And so here is somebody that's actually the mayor of a city that heard about it and was like, I want our city to invest in our youth like this differently. So he already had a heart and passion. He was already thinking about doing a restaurant, or how do we hire these kids? And, he's really invested. So everything from mayors to, we've had donors, we've had people in school districts, we've had people so kind of across the board that would maybe see something on the news or in the media and go, I want that in our city for our young people. So there's actually been it's been entrepreneurs, it's been philanthropists. It's been kind of fun to see who's popping up.
Yeah, well, that's a good sign that it's a great idea, that it spans, not just certain, segments of the population. It's kind of across the board. I mean, I know my wheels are turning because I love the idea. When you put together, I'm just curious because it seems like a heavy lift as far as, something to figure out. When you put together a training program, this whole thing, did you write this all yourself? Did you bring in experts to kind of put together this program? Because, I know it's hard enough to hire and staff and train, a restaurant as is, or any business as is, but to have, a real organized, thoughtful, kind of plan for the onboarding and offboarding of your people. That's kind of that's a lot of work. Was that all you, or
no, definitely not. So I always talk about Old Skool. It's very much the village concept, that it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. And none of us can do. This is hard, deep work, and it really takes all of us. So I had the basic idea, but remember, I had no restaurant experience initially. So at some point, I'm going to blow up how we used to do the seating chart, because I didn't know about reservation system, how to do that. So I would like with a ruler draw out like the tables and where we were going to seat people when they came in. So we stood there, and then over the years, we've had different volunteers and paid professionals. And even one of our youth, she was the one that did the poetry in the video probably that you watched. Tammy, she came in as a youth, as a performer, worked in the restaurant, and then she got promoted as manager. So she even helped write some of the curriculum as we developed this stuff and saw what worked with the youth and her own peers, right? So it's kind of iterated over the years with a lot of really awesome hands in the pot, helping tweak it. And then I'm a big believer in every time, let's see what worked and how do we just improve it every single cohort.
Right. Yeah. It's a process, right? Less a destination, more of a process along the way. Right. When you talk about, your past life and then this, kind of most recent endeavor, but you've been at it for a while. What has been one of the hardest lessons you've learned, or one of the mistakes you've made along the way? Because, like anything you start up, especially when you're really kind of blazing a trail into kind of the unknown. So you trip and fall, I have to imagine, along the way. So have you had any, huge lessons or mistakes? For me, when I was starting up, our company, there's just like, I don't know, there's like 10 of them that just jump out at me of, of lessons learned along the way. I have to imagine that, this journey has been a process for you as much as anyone, in kind of a learning and evolution of yourself. But what has been your biggest lesson?
Well, how long is the podcast?
We can stay all day. It's Friday, man. I mean,
I've got lots of failures and lessons learned and hard things. Let's see. Let me try to condense to just a few. So one of the first things I think, I quit my job. So I was doing this starting in 2004. I was working full time and trying to get this launched off the ground full time. And then I, naively thought, because remember, I didn't know how hard this would be, right? But because I could see it and I'm a visionary. So I'm like, this is going to be amazing. It's totally going to work. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. I don't care. So I quit my job at the end of 2005 to just jump in full time. So I was like scrapping it, working with volunteers, trying to, eat ramen noodles, the whole thing. And I thought in 2 years, okay, people will do a launch to I was either going to go to grad school or launch this idea.
You made the right choice.
Thank you. So, so I thought, okay, 2 years, I can scrap it and do these, side jobs and different things to make it work. I had no idea that 2 years was going to turn into like 8 years. Right. Yeah. And so realizing, and then, by the time you're in year 6 and you're still doing this, out of your house and things are still not, you have people that really love me that were like, it's okay to let it go, Teresa. Yeah. Right. Because that's a long startup. That's a long time to still be people. Oh, that's such a cool concept. Where is it? Well, it's in my house.
Yeah. Right. And I always said you almost, to be an entrepreneur and to have a vision and see it through, you almost have to be like, mindfully stubborn of, kind of blocking out, your own voice and some of the other voices, because otherwise you're just never going to get there. You have to kind of, believe in it and jump into the process, all in and let it become what you hope it to be. But, you have to have a little bit of that, reckless abandon, for the idea or what you're looking for. And I can definitely see that you obviously have that. I was curious when you talk about, I always ask this because on this show we've had, professional athletes, vice presidential candidates, entrepreneurs, people involved in various, organizations, nonprofits. And I always try to get into kind of their habits or routine. Do you have, kind of like we talk about working out or balancing a way in which you approach your day to be able to stay focused on your goals and your vision? Is what some people it's meditation, sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's, working out, sometimes it's, I don't know. I've heard a ton of things. I'm just curious. Do you have anything that kind of helps center you and ground you in your pursuits?
Definitely. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that I'm always as consistent as I would like to be, especially with the working out. But yeah, I know for me, the things that where I am in the healthiest place that help me really stay centered are, I'm a person of faith. So my favorite time is like my still quiet time in the morning, having my coffee and my time with God to just, okay, that's right. I can't do this in my own strength, and starting with just a spirit of gratitude, because sometimes it gets really gnarly and really overwhelming and I want to quit sometimes more days than I want to keep going. Right. Just really getting that, like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm so grateful for, all of these things. And will you give me the strength, God, to really do out of the right heart and spirit and not weariness and trust that the help I need will come. So that's a big thing. And then, exercising. So I love, a few years ago, I started bodybuilding and that was such a great, now I'm not, I'd love to be getting back into that, but so now just, working out, 6 days a week is where I'm in the healthiest place. And I have a walking treadmill under my desk because I can be on the computer.
Aren't those awesome? I think everyone has to have them. I mean, so I'm on a farm and, there's a joke around here. We have about 800 employees and, I don't have an office, so I work out of my truck. And so whenever I take a phone call, I do laps around, our 1,000-acre farm. And so I've always said it's so cathartic. It's so meditative. And you get in kind of a flow state a little bit with ideas and conversations. So everyone, should have the luxury or, the benefit of a walking treadmill desk. I believe that.
And being even better. I love doing when I can, love doing our meetings walking, right? Because
Right.
there is, that are even on the phone, because there's something about moving and breathing
Yeah.
fresh air. So yeah, I'm into health and fitness and, getting enough sleep, drinking water, just those things
Right.
but when I'm not in a healthy place, I can get up and go straight to my computer and think, oh, it's on my brain, because I wake up with work stuff.
Yeah.
And I go, well, let me just do this really quick. And then pretty soon I've been sitting there stuck for 4 hours without,
Right. So I have a couple questions kind of drilling into the, the concept of Old Skool Cafe. It's a jazz themed supper club. So I'm curious where the jazz came in, and then how do you pick the menu, and is that all, is that you? Is that the people you employ? How did you come up with the menu, the concept,
Yeah.
and, the jazz themed supper club? Because that sounds awesome. Next I'm in San Francisco, I'm coming.
Definitely. We'd love to host you for sure. So again, back to the concept. So when I was an officer and I'm working with all these amazing young people that I'm feeling like are kind of thrown away by our society, we used to do these kind of talent shows in the boot camp, and they would be, hilarious. We had some comedians, we had incredible dancers, great poets, great spoken word artists, singers, and I thought, man, a lot of our young people had dropped out of school, right? So they weren't in the regular, in sports and theater and getting to do the talent shows and things like that at their school. And I thought, who's ever going to, they're not ever getting the opportunity to show their gift to the world and get positive reinforcement for that, right? So that's where the idea of having a stage. So the initial name of Old Skool was Give Them a Voice Youth Dinner Theater.
It was too long.
Very non-profit-y, yes, very long, very non-profit sounding. So I always wanted to have a stage that was for our youth. So I mentioned that we serve about 40 youth a year in the intensive program, but we have another 25 youth that are entertainers. And so
that's awesome.
I also love, I also believe that, especially with a lot of the trauma we have in our country from our history, there's a lot of, African-American, Latino, all kinds of history that we're not really learning in school. And so I kind of wanted to create a themed restaurant that kind of by absorption, you were going to get some of that. So our theme is the Harlem Renaissance. So we're sort of Great Gatsby meets Harlem Renaissance, 1920s to 1940s speakeasy vibe. So we have...
that sounds cool. That's
it's
awesome.
Super fun, right?
Yeah.
So by our theme, by the pictures you're going to see, it's just kind of, you're going to learn about the Harlem Renaissance. And so that's sort of theme. And so of course that jazz and blues and all that's kind of what goes with that. So now we open it to more than just jazz. So we've had some indie, or it has to just be a dinner music.
Right. Got it. I think that's such a great way to create a bridge between cultures and races and ethnicities to kind of immerse, everyone into everyone's culture, and you start to understand people better. You understand, where ideas and concepts and emotions and all of these things come from. So I think that's just, another way of, connecting and giving back and healing the community. So I love that idea. If people want to get involved and, people want to, donate or, follow you or borrow your idea in other areas across the country, how do they find you, and how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website, so the big thing is that we're Skool, Skool. Let's see, can I pull up there we go.
You got it. There you go.
So it's just Old Skool Cafe, Skool, oldskoolcafe.org. And so there you can, and if you want to write an email, contact at oldskoolcafe.org, that will eventually make its way to me or someone on our team. And right there at oldskoolcafe.org, you can donate. You can see different ways to get involved. You can learn. You could, email us for any questions. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I truly, you're an amazing human, and just, so humbled and honored to have talked to you, because people like you are the people that are helping, really, heal the world that we're in. And I think we need more people like you. So thanks for being you, and thanks for coming on. And look forward to catching up. I might email you after this. I want to pick your brain a little bit more for my school board discussion. So.
Yeah, Yeah, no, thank you, Andrew, for having me and caring about our story, because I do think that this is those connections that help us change the way our country.
We need just more people talking about this sort of stuff. We can't do it alone. We need a million, 10 million people, kind of banging this drum of this is the type of change we need. So, and we have social media and we have a digital world which we can get this message out there to more people and start planting seeds. I'll use my farmer reference of these ideas. So
right. Seeds, we'll cook it, and
there you go.
Let's link arms. And to that point, we are also on all the social media. It's just at Old Skool Cafe. But yeah, I'm excited to talk with you further. Let's link arms and let's make some waves.
I love it. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. You can find Everything Borrowed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Show your support and drop a 5-star review to help more people find our channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, and everythingborrowedpodcast.com. EBP is produced by Chelsea Cox, Jason Brown, and Vox Adams. Edited and filmed by Nick Ferguson. Art is by Adam Yarborough. Everything Borrowed is an After Hours Media production. Copyright 2021.